Welcome to Dad and Sons, your number one source for crusty curmudgeons. My name is George Wheatman, and we've also got the lovely Matt Visual and Liam Edwards with us as usual. How are you guys doing tonight?
Doing good.
Tired. We're recording this a little bit later in the day today.
Yeah. We're finally recording it early for me, so I'm happy.
Usually we do 11 p.m. Japan time, fresh and early, 9 a.m. in the morning, Trump land time. And the reason we're doing it differently this time is because we're all about to travel to go see our families next week. We're all going to be tied up. So we thought instead of staying a week behind the news, we would sum up the whole year in news. That way we won't be too far behind when this thing comes out, because we'll have a wider sample pool from which to mine our relevancy and our timeliness with.
Can we predict the next week's news from here? What do you reckon the end of 2017 bonanza would be? What kind of crazy story will happen now between when this goes live and when we're on holiday?
A higher internet bill.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Yeah. Anyways, besides that though, we've got some of our favorite games, some of our least favorite games, some really wacky stories we want to talk about. We're going to be breaking this podcast up into two segments. The first, for 30 minutes, we're going to talk about stories and games that did not personally affect us so much as it did other people. For the next half of the podcast, we're going to be talking about our own personal, weirdest, wildest, favoriteest stories from 2017. That's going to be called our personal highlight of the year. Not necessarily game of the year, story of the year, or I don't know, restaurant of the year, but our highlight of the year. So before we get started on all of that, I'm going to propose a huge, big ass topic that was a really important, good news story that year, and that is the Japanese games got real good again.
They did. Holy shit!
And I wonder how that happened. Yeah. In previous years, especially around the turn of the PS3 generation, the Japanese game industry just seemed to be behind. I don't know. There was a lot of... Remember when Phil Fish was getting in trouble? And there was so much anger over his comment over Japanese games kind of sucking right now.
Yeah.
And that was, I believe that was made in 2011 going on 12, but it was very much following a years-long wave in which stuff like Blue Dragon and Eternal Sonata were coming out on Xbox 360 first. Give or take a decade. Wow, that situation has totally reversed over the past 4 or 5 years or so, and this year is the definitive example of just how high quality games in Japan are getting compared to years past. It almost feels like the glorious return to super cool, exciting, kind of culturally different and wacky Japanese games that remind me of the late 90s. That's a good feeling. Liam, you live in Japan. Why do you think Japanese games got real good this year?
I don't think it's necessarily that they got good this year. I think you have to look at it in terms of how long games take to make, right? Mm-hmm. Games take 3 to 4 years, some games even longer, especially in the Japanese development cycle, because most of the games come from big companies like Capcom, Nintendo, Konami, Atlus. The games come from those big companies, and usually big companies have a long development cycle. I mean, look at Final Fantasy 15, for example. That took, 10 years, 12 years to make.
Oh god, and I remember the ads in Japan were just black walls of text with white letters that were just saying, "This took forever, guys, trust us."
Yeah, so I think you have to look
weird seeing that.
I think you have to look at how long it takes to make games, because there was a certain period in the 90s when Japanese games were on top alongside PC games, and that was kind of what everyone was playing. There was RPGs, there was platformers. They were all fantastic, and it's what we sort of remembered. Then there was this switch to 3D, where I think Japan dominated for a while in the early PlayStation days and the early N64 days, where Nintendo and Square Enix and Sony were dominating the market. Then there was this almost tectonic shift towards where Western developers started to be able to make PC ports and stuff like that to consoles, and then the console market started to become dominated by games like GTA and stuff like that. So it was the Japanese market had to sort of change their perspective, and that took a while before they could make games like that. But then we hit
because PC gaming was because PC gaming was never a thing in Japan. Yeah. So that was a huge market of ready-made console gaming ports.
Exactly.
That Westerners had that Japanese gamers kind of kind of didn't necessarily have as big a library to just port over when the consoles got good enough to port over computer games.
Exactly, and like in the terms of like making a game, as I said, it takes so long, like 3 to 4 years. That is like a huge amount of time in video games. Like if you think about what got released this year, that had started development 3 or 4 years ago, and you think about what games were coming out then, so that's what they were looking at as their sort of, oh, this is what we need to emulate kind of thing. So they were looking at the open world games of like The Witcher 3 and stuff like that. You can see it in games like Breath of the Wild from Nintendo. So it's like they had the hangover of the PS3 where they never quite got development right, because the game started at the end of the PS2 era. The PS3 was notoriously difficult to develop for. And the Xbox never took off in Japan, so no one was really developing for it apart from Sakaguchi, who made games like Lost Odyssey and stuff like that, which turned out great but didn't sell very well.
No.
So the Xbox, which was basically, you know, the biggest console of the last generation, never really took off in Japan, so no one really developed for it. The only big companies developed like ports, like the Final Fantasy 13 port and stuff like that for that console. So there was like this massive hangover, I think.
That times up with that like window I was talking about, like from PS3 launch 2006 up to like 2011, like right the tail end of this like huge stretch of Japanese games being kind of behind, like seems to stop around 2012. I remember like the Wii U had an amazing lineup of really like weird, obviously Japanese made games starting around 2012 that were just like stellar in comparison. I feel like that's when you started to see quality make the switch again back over to the eastern side.
It's really strange because I think we're looking at it kind of from a Western point of view, where there were very little Japanese games on the Xbox 360. Well, that's because Japanese companies don't really look outside of Japan anyway. Even big companies like Nintendo don't look outside of their core audience in Japan. So if developers see that the Xbox wasn't doing very well in Japan, well, they're not going to develop for it. So then they're only developing for the PS3, and then we know how that turned out, because the PS3 was not an easy console to develop for.
I guess my current theory right now is that this is going to sound like it's going to tickle the fanboys and sound like the most childish thing I've said in years, but I'm getting the impression that the PS4 saved Japanese gaming.
I think...
Is that an exaggeration?
I think that's a little bit of an exaggeration to an extent, but it's definitely easier to develop for, and also it's sold incredibly well in Japan. Yeah, it's
stupidly popular.
Whereas the Wii U didn't sell very well, and there was like a whole host of Japanese games for the Wii U. You know, we're looking at like the Fire Emblem Cross Shin Megami Tensei game. There was like games like, you know, Bayonetta and stuff like that appeared on the Wii U that didn't appear anywhere else. There was a lot of Japanese games specifically for the Wii U, but obviously even in Japan the Wii U didn't sell very well. So there was this sort of stagnation for that generation. And then when the PS4 came along and everyone was like, well, we need to shift our development to PlayStation 4. Oh, look, it uses like Unreal 4 and we can use this and it's a lot easier. Oh, look, everyone's buying it. Oh, look, Japanese gaming is saved. And then the Switch came along and now everything is, you know, hunky-dory. So I think it was just...
Oh, yeah. And
I don't think it was that Japanese games
That's going to be a big topic later.
I don't think it was that Japanese games got bad. I just think it got really difficult for Japanese developers to get to their core audience because they made predictions that turned out to be wrong. Like, who would have thought the Wii U would only sell, 4 million units or whatever dumb number it was? Who would have thought the PlayStation 3 would turn out to be really hard to program for? And who would have thought that the Xbox 360 would become really popular worldwide, just not in Japan? So I think their predictions were wrong. I don't think it was necessarily that Japanese games got bad.
I got you. I don't think I was that wrong. I mean, there seems to be like a correlation and a tie between like how well the current PlayStation console of whatever era is doing and like how high the review scores are for the big ticket Japanese games coming out those years.
Exactly. And I think one thing Japanese games have always suffered from is their scope. Like if you look at games like Xenoblade Chronicles, they're just notorious for just being so huge and just completely out of their scope compared to other games as well. Like, even if you look at games like The Witcher 3, which are huge games, but the scope is always very much like, 1, 2, 3 huge areas that you can explore, but they always know what to stick to. Whereas Japanese developers just like, they fucking go ham, and they just make these huge maps and they just fill it with tons of stuff to do, like side quests that go on forever. So with the PlayStation 4, it was like, oh, we finally have the sort of hardware to be able to just do what we want, and it won't cost us that much, or it won't be so difficult to actually implement this time. And then we've seen, games like Yakuza 0 and Nier Automata like come out and just be like these incredible games that people can get hold of easily as well in Japan and the West.
They feel like PS2 games in a way, like and Yakuza 0 too, like real niche stuff getting high production values.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like Auto Tomato is, and I won't stop calling it that, but that whole thing was just like a real blast from the past with me. It felt like I was renting Metal Gear Solid 2 from Blockbuster for the weekend again. Like, just this absurdly insane, bizarre, surreal Japanese thing that makes absolutely no sense, having this bombastic orchestral soundtrack with cinematic cutscenes that have capital D direction. Like, that game had production values, and it was about like anime Lolita robots fighting after the post-apocalypse 4,000 years from now.
It's super weird to me that for some reason now, of all times, I think Japanese games, I think because there's more of them now, it's easier to sort of pick one up and be like, oh, this looks like fun. But you've got to remember, like, games like Persona 5, which are, one of the best games of the year, that's getting, like, some Game of the Year awards from many places, got, like, 10 out of 10. That game took, like, 8 years to make. So it's a good long time, and even games like Nier Automata took, like, a good, 3-4 years. But there were games on the PlayStation 3, like Yakuza 3 and Yakuza 4 are amazing games. Like, they are very, very good games.
Oh, yeah.
Just as good as Yakuza 0. But no one played them. But for some reason now, Yakuza 0 is, like, commercially one of Sega's most successful titles in a long while. Everyone's giving it, like, 9 out of 10 and stuff. It's like, I don't know when the shift came. I don't know if it's because there's more of those games that means more people look at them. I don't know quite exactly what the difference is, because there was a lot of games on PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 like Lost Odyssey, which are, really good games that just didn't sell very well then. So I don't know why.
Rented that from Blockbuster. Wow, that's a blast from the past.
I think there's a weird correlation between let's say 2010 Twitch and streaming catch on, 2011 to 2013 all of a sudden, like, esports and competitive gaming catch on. Around that same time, the fighting game community becomes a thing, who, like, kind of sort of have to play really niche, obscure Japanese games. And I have a feeling that, like, a lot of those guys' enthusiasm for weird Japanese shit is kind of, like, spread over into other fan groups of the gaming zeitgeist as well. Because I think that's around the time I, like, started to appreciate Platinum games, was around 2013 when the FGC was getting big, and a lot of those a lot of that kind of self-deprecatory Japanese making fun sense of humor was catching on, and that, like, catched on into a real genuine way of appreciating the stuff as well as making fun of it.
I think one of the major things as well with the games that we've seen that have come out, they've definitely taken some inspiration from Western influence. They've looked at the fact that they were kind of left behind in the previous generation, and even sort of in the PlayStation 2 generation by the end of it. They were being left behind in sales figures compared to big games like GTA and Mass Effect and all those other big, huge Western titles that came out and became, like, staples of the industry. They got left behind, and they looked, okay, so what is it about those games that make them sell a lot? And then you can see it in games like Breath of the Wild, Final Fantasy 15. They've gone for these huge open world games that have side quests, and they have, like, a sort of the environment takes a lot more of a character in those games, whereas old sort of JRPGs and stuff, it was all about the characters and the mechanics and the world took a sort of backstep a little bit, I think. Whereas, you know, if you look at games, I harp on about The Witcher 3 again, but like if you look at The Witcher 3 and like how well that did and the way that the world was really dense and built up, there's so much influence from those type of games that have come into Japanese games. And you can see it in some interviews as well. They're like, oh, we looked at these games like these big Western RPGs or these big Western action titles, and we sort of tried to incorporate or learn from those games and put it into our games. So there was definitely a little bit of a Western influence in the Japanese market too.
Among everyone's Game of the Year list, there's probably going to be shitloads of Japanese contenders on them. Probably absolutely. More so than Western this year. And I feel like that's kind of related to how terrible of a PR, like how terrible of a year EA's PR department has had. So one controversy that people might forget as the year comes to conclude that was more relevant towards the middle of the year was the release of Mass Effect Andromeda, which started a lot of bad blood that continued on throughout the rest of the year. And Matt, you've been quiet, but you actually played Andromeda, right?
Yeah, I played a few hours, not just like the beginning, but like past like the trial and stuff. And
was it actually as bad as everyone made it sound? Really?
It's bad. It's bad. I mean, it doesn't feel like Mass Effect, if that makes sense.
That makes sense.
Like, okay, so let me tell you kind of the thing that bothers me about the game is, for example, you're like a couple planets in, and you get this new guy that's supposed to help you get in contact with a certain somebody. And for the first time, you drop down on this planet, you put him in your party because you need him, and you take another guy. In this case, it was I forgot the girl's name. It was the girl with the white hair. She comes in your party. We go down, and
I feel like that's a sign you already forgot her name.
Yeah, I think it starts with a C. But during the ride, they're talking to each other, and during the ride, they immediately become best friends. Like, it's like, oh, we've been through so much together. Like the lines on this game, we've been through so much together. Oh, you're like a sister to me. Immediately. Like, what the hell is happening? Like, it's just randomness like that. Constantly.
Maybe she just had a really good day. It's just feeling happy.
And it keeps going. Like, every line after that is them just being almost like down each other's throats while I'm driving. Like, I was like, wait a minute. I'm talking to this girl. You're not talking. You just came into here. You ain't no. You know, like, it frustrated me so much that I actually stopped playing. Of course, there was a lot more going on. It felt like there was some of the cutscenes, the animations don't get better. It's not just in the beginning of the game, and that's it's pretty funny because I played another game that's kind of like that, like Divinity Original Sin 2. Like in the beginning of the game, it's like great, and then near the end of the game, you start to see it like fail, like they didn't finish the end of the game. And this,
I have heard several people like recommend that to me as their game of the year.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a good game. It's a good game, but yeah. Mass Effect, I would love to finish it. The combat is fun. I think if you don't think of it as a Mass Effect game, you don't think of that immersive, you know, if you don't care about animations and you don't care about a character constantly like changing their voice or
changing their voice, it's so weird.
Yeah, like changing their voice, or you know, like the camera zooming up into their face and then zooming back out, or clipping. If you're okay with that type of stuff, you know, if you like Elix, right? If you like that game, you probably would like Mass Effect. You know. Okay, everyone in the crowd is just like, what's Elix? Yeah, look.
Yeah. Explain to us real quick what Elix is, because I didn't know about it either until you told me just now.
Yeah, I saw like the trailer for this game. A friend was showing me at work, and I was like, oh man, this looks pretty tight. Like, I've been wanting.
The screenshots look good.
Yeah, it's like a dry, like no good RPGs are out anymore. For some reason, it's all shooters and stuff, and I was just like, I want a good RPG to play so badly, and I already played the hell out of The Witcher 3, even though I need to play the DLC. And I saw the trailer, I was like, okay, this looks pretty good. This looks pretty solid. I play the game, and it's so janky, like from the beginning of the game. And what I was telling you before the podcast started is when you roll, the camera doesn't follow you. It catches up to you when you stop the roll.
Oh no, it's Piranha Bytes. That means it's like it's a Eurojank game.
This is from THQ Nordic.
THQ Nordic.
Yeah. Supposedly,
and don't get me wrong, they make good stuff, but they're like consistently Eurojanky.
Yeah, Gothic series. Supposedly, it's a really good game.
Germans love, but I have not really made a lot of friends like from America who like tolerate the jank quite like the Europeans can.
Yeah, yeah. It's beyond for people who like the jank. It's beyond Fallout jank. This is going to another tier of jank. If you can believe it, it's another tier of jank. And supposedly there's a gem hidden under all that juice. Okay? If you put the time in and go through some of the difficulty curves, like if you go the wrong way, you just get thrashed by some like random like deer thing. I can't remember what it was. Like it just killed me. And it doesn't explain to you like it's weird. It's a weird combat system. But I mean, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with getting messed up and learning a combat. I'm okay with that. It's just the jank with it. It doesn't make it enjoyable to play. You're looking at it and it's just like, I don't know. I don't know if I want to waste my time on this. I'd rather watch some Netflix.
I think it's funny that we segued from a conversation about Mass Effect Andromeda being janky into a real-ass actual jank game being janky. Yeah. And in comparison to like the super high-quality Japanese games, what you've been seeing a lot of are the super big-ticket AAA Western games either being pieces of janky shit or having huge annoying loot boxes attached to them. And I think like, people really remember the great glitch crisis of 2014, right? When AC Unity came out, everyone's head was, like, popping out of their eye sockets, and the screenshots were getting passed around. That defined that year's problem in gaming. And this year's problem in gaming, I'm pretty sure, is going to be remembered as this loot box fiasco, in which Battlefront 2, Shadow of War, this year's Need for Speed sequel, this year's UFC sequel, were all blasted by reviews, and especially like the angry fans for kind of stifling their in-game progression systems for the sake of selling loot boxes.
I don't know I don't know whether I've won this year then, because I have actually not played a single game this year that has had a loot box.
Oh yeah. Me neither. They're easy to avoid. I think this is kind of the case where like hardcore crowds are making hardcore noise about something that they don't really buy that much anyway.
I played Shadow of War, that's pretty much it.
They have mainstream licenses like Lord of the Rings and Star Wars and whatnot, and like Shadow of War. How bad were the loot boxes? Were they bad?
You could still finish the game. I didn't buy anything, of course, because I don't care to buy stuff. But you can finish the game without it. After the game, that's a different story. There's like a true ending that you have to get, and it is a grind. Off. Like, not a little bit, it's a grind.
Oh, and that's where they want you to buy stuff to get the true ending?
I think so. And
I hate that shit. I hate that shit when there's not even anything to buy.
Because the ending is not really an ending, and then they have you do all this grindy stuff.
That's Peace Walker.
Yes, that's exactly what Peace Walker is. Yes.
Like, okay.
Oh my God. It's exactly like Peace Walker. Oh my God. I remember grinding to get... Peace Walker was more entertaining than Shadow of War, I would have to say.
Wait,
and that's saying
though?
something.
Because the PSP version was like impossible to play.
Oh my God. It was. Because
the Xbox
because you had to like grind like elite orcs. Okay, like epic and legendary orcs to like fight these other legendary orcs that are coming to attack your base. It's annoying. It's tedious. It's not fun. I don't know. I always enjoyed it in the first game, but now they made it into a chore and kind of ruined it for me, I would have to say.
I wonder why they would do such a thing. What possible incentive or strategy or purpose could could they have used to justify such a baffling decision?
Money.
Probably. So I mean, but at least like you have them making money the bad way people don't like. You have Nintendo making money the good way people do like. You have PUBG making money in a way people are like confused about. You got the loot boxes and the cosmetics, but they are they're like this year's massive success story. An incredibly small team all of a sudden have an incredible amount of money on their hand, and they're totally independent.
We were talking about
kind of totally
independent. Jank. Yeah, one of 2017's biggest, easily the most huge success. 30 million copies sold is like the jankiest game ever.
Yeah,
and people are totally cool with it. It's like the case where I don't know. There's definitely games where jank is more tolerable than games where they aren't. I have not been able to get into PUBGUH. I totally understand people who do, though. I think I understand the appeal. There are very, very tense, fun moments I've had with it. But I'm just like too used to Siege to get into it. But I still really respect what it does, and I also respect the developer's strategy. I respect that they made so much money, kind of, well, not necessarily all by themselves, but without really having a lot of the scummier AAA practices or even like indie game practices, skimming that effort off the top. Even though a lot of people would still argue they do by launching this early access game, that is still a point of contention with a lot of fans, especially, we were just talking about the Xbox version of this, which is $30, which is not a great version of this.
Ugh.
So yeah, I don't know. Maybe it depends on who you ask. I am like considering the success of PUBGUH as like this year's feel-good success story, despite those issues. I don't know if you guys consider it a positive or a negative or something in between, or even if like reducing news stories down to that kind of dichotomy is silly, which it might be. But
I think PUBGUH is pretty positive. I don't think there's been anything incredibly bad about it. I mean, towards the end of the year, the Xbox One version that came out was like a disgusting mess that, people had to shell out $30 for or whatever. I think that was pretty snidey of Microsoft and what are they called? Blue Font? What? Blue Point?
Bluehole.
Bluehole. There you go. But in terms of like the rising success of it and the people who, the stories of the games people have in that game because of how random and intense it can be, I think overall it's been a super positive thing. I think everyone's just having fun. There's like no incredibly dastardly bad stuff about it. There was the news of the female model camel toe stuff a few weeks ago that was weird, but
wait, really?
Yeah, I didn't even know that existed until I saw that.
Yeah, there was a news story where they changed the models to the female models to have camel toe.
Oh, to have? Wait a minute, to have camel toe?
To have. Yeah, to have. And then I think they reversed it. I don't know what the update is on that, but it was super weird. Super valid.
Maybe they got...
Wow.
Maybe they got one of those Koji Pro Beauty and the Beast modelers to work on the PUBG team.
Wow.
I don't know.
But
I've been playing a lot of that, and I'll get into that in a video anyways.
What? But I think yeah.
Okay.
I think it's been positive, though.
Are you not aroused, Matt Visual?
No! That's the most weirdest thing to do! I thought they took it out. I thought it was like... I didn't even know it existed.
But they patched it in and then took it out?
That's what I'm hearing, right? That's what you're saying, Liam.
I think, remember the vagina in Watch Dogs 2 that they patched out?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure like they updated the public test servers or something, and then someone found out that the female models now had camel toe, and then everyone was like, what the fuck? Like, why is this something they've implemented now? And then I think it got changed.
Just like imagine seeing that on the bullet point of your patch log, like the change log. Now includes camel toe for female textures.
I mean,
Camel toe-
fun, guys.
do the guys
I'm
have
just
bulges?
I'm
What's
quickly
going on
looking
here?
at the most recent news story about it. Camel toes in PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds won't make it to their live servers as they were an accident.
Maybe the artist was using it for anatomical reference. I'm sure there's a reasonable explanation behind this.
An accident, yeah, okay. Oh, yeah.
In a very specific area.
Yeah. Well, like, I could understand if they updated the model and it, you know, they had, like, really good clothes and it, like, I don't know, formed around. I don't know, like...
The camera scanned way too well.
Yeah. Whoa.
And let's be honest,
The
the
mocap
models...
was way too accurate.
Let's be honest, the models in PUBGUH are pretty low tier.
Yeah, are pretty garbage.
Anyway.
That's why it makes no sense. It makes no... Okay.
Yeah, but they focus on the important details of the models, you know.
Of course, you got to be anatomically correct.
The places characters are going to shove their camera into.
So weird. Super weird. Anyway.
So yeah, let's see. Before we move on to our highlights, really quickly, do we have any strong feelings about Hitman's IO team switching over to independence? They've left Square Enix. They kind of like, even though they've suffered a lot of layoffs very shortly afterwards, they're promising to kind of reinvent the game and offer more content than before as they put out Season 2, which I'd imagine and predict might be kind of shittier than Season 1, but they're a lot of their old content that they held back through the game of the Square Enix publishing deal is steadily tricking out over the years, which I think is good. I wish them the best. Do you guys have any other thoughts? Anything to add?
I think Hitman's your bag, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's so what you think they're leaving because of they had to split the episodes up, or?
I think they're leaving because they weren't meeting Square Enix's stupid sales projection targets, and
they made a pretty decent game too.
They did. They made a perfectly fine game that would have sold better if it was marketed better and not split up into all these different packages, which is not. As revealed through journalism, was not necessarily Square Enix's idea, but the possibility and also the prediction and the impression from the developers that decision was made to work with Square Enix's deadline seems to be the case instead.
Because they wanted to make a good game and not a garbage game.
Yeah, they didn't want to rush it out, so they split it up.
Okay.
I'm hoping that this paradigm of PUBGUH being so successful and Hitman at least being able to plan new content without a publisher spreads to other game developers as well, who can put out like that kind of middle tier AA kind of content quality without any publisher at all. I would hope. I mean, eventually, I guess they might become Valve and kind of grow big and go through the usual capitalism cycle of becoming bloated and having more ways to make money than make good products. But until then, it's nice to see this kind of competition happening. And I would like to see more stories of publishers kind of tripping and falling on their booties and making bad microtransaction schemes and suffering for it. I don't know. But let's see. We also kind of sort of saw the official death of the Wii U this year. If memory serves me correctly, no Wii U games came out. Did they?
Breath of the Wild did.
Yeah, Breath of the Wild. Let's see. When did Pokken come out? 2015. Pokken, sorry. When did Fire Emblem Fates came out on the Wii U?
Fates didn't come out on the Wii U. Fates came out on the 3DS.
Oh, sorry. I'm thinking of the
Fire Emblem Shop,
Tokyo Mirage Sessions. Yeah. Tokyo Mirage.
2016.
2016, yeah. So what was there anything other than Breath of the Wild that was released of note on the Wii U?
No, because we will get into it soon enough, but there was no reason to, essentially. There was some eShop stuff I think that was released for the Wii U, but that's it.
It was crappy. Yeah, I remember looking at the new releases and just being so depressed the last couple times I booted it up.
And I don't think anyone cared. Like, no one cared.
The Miiverse is gone.
The Miiverse death was sad.
Oh,
yes.
no.
That was sad. I can't believe that's
one of the sadder
that didn't carry over,
stories.
but
yeah. But anyways, we're going to get into our highlights very, very shortly after this quick break.
想像を超える興奮と感動を最高のエンターテインメント体験がついに始まる
どちらかが死にどちらかが生きる生き残った者がボスの称号を受け継ぐお互いの忠を尽くせさあ来い
パチスロメタルギアソリッドスネークイーター
So, we're getting back into our highlights of the year, in which we're going to talk about news stories we thought were the most fun, personal stories we thought were the most fun, games that are the most fun. Don't necessarily interpret that as a game of the year, though. I've got a long list of asterisks after my stuff on my section, but let's begin with Liam. Liam, what was your highlight of the year for 2017 in relation to its video games?
So I think predictably, everyone who listens to Final Games or listens to this and knows me will know that my 2017 highlight is definitely, without a shadow of a doubt, the Nintendo Switch in general. So the Nintendo Switch released earlier this year. I can't believe it only came out this year. It feels like it's been around for quite a while now, considering just the huge amount of games that is been released just within the first year of this, console. It released 3rd of March this year with...
And it has like 2 potential system sellers already.
Yeah, and like it launched with arguably the best game in one of the most well-known franchises of all time on it. Just like, here, have a Zelda game to go with your brand new portable console that you can play. You can play console-esque versions like you would on a TV on the bus. Or on the train, or in the barbers, or when you're at a restaurant. Like, I was playing Breath of the Wild everywhere I could. In my car, when I was waiting for the train. I was playing it on the bus to Osaka to meet George. I can't believe how... I think the Switch is this weird... antithesis to Nintendo's sort of philosophy about how they do things usually. It's very meticulously planned. It's very Japanese, the way Nintendo do things. But it was almost Apple-like in the way Nintendo didn't tell us anything about the Nintendo Switch until the reveal, which was only last October, a year and 2 months ago. We didn't even know.
It never happens that fast.
It never happens that fast. And
not
that
since
was
the Sega Saturn.
And that was just the
been a
reveal.
release that close to the announcement.
It's crazy. It was just the reveal.
It was not a good sign. Like, everyone was kind of anticipating the worst after the Wii U and the kind of rush job of there actually was kind of a rush job to both marketing, explaining, selling the Switch, and also getting the operating system up to snuff on time. People couldn't transfer their save games and stuff over.
And not only that, but
it still sold
all the rumors
really well.
All the rumors had come out that it was going to be this portable hybrid device, and people were like, oh, it's going to be, Wii U powered shitty device. People down automatically on it. Like, why would you want this console that you can plug into your TV that isn't that powerful and then carry it around with you when you've got a 3DS or something like that? And then, it comes to January, and they have their event in January where they finally announce that Breath of the Wild will be a launch title. And this is 3 months before the console's coming out. And pre-orders aren't even up yet. And it's like, oh god, this does not bode well. And do Nintendo know what they're doing? This is weird. So then you skip forward 3 months, and it sells out completely. Breath of the Wild gets 10 out of 10s. It gets, we're sitting at the end of the year. It's won all of the Game of the Year awards. It personally is one of the best experiences I've played this year. And then everyone's thinking, oh, okay, so we have this console, we have a great Zelda game, but are there going to be games released for it this year they're going to keep up? not only were there games released this year, there were phenomenal amounts of good games from Nintendo, like Splatoon 2, ARMS, Mario Kart. Then we had Mario Odyssey, which is personally, I think, my favorite game of the year. And on top of that, it turns out that the Switch is incredibly easy to develop for. So we had all these amazing indie developers who had made great indie games like Rocket League and Overcooked and Golf Story and Thumper. They were just like, oh, it turns out the Switch is super easy to port stuff to. So we'll just like quickly put together our ports and we'll just throw it onto the Switch so you can buy it. So we're sitting in December talking about the highlights of the year, and we had two consoles launched this year. Technically, one that took the world by storm, and the other one is the Xbox Scorpio. So deal with that as you will. But the Switch has, I think I have like 20 games for the Switch, and that isn't even like half of the catalog of games that are out for it. I don't even think there has been a console launch in its first year that has ever been as good in terms of like games quality.
And I think one thing to note is that Breath of the Wild is such a radically different Zelda game.
Yeah.
And the Switch doesn't seem like a radically different Nintendo console, but it does seem like they're like doing very radically different strategies in terms of a lot of marketing and design and visual stuff.
It does that typical Nintendo thing where Nintendo gives you what you thought you didn't want.
It turns out you wanted it,
and that you really want
they show what it's like when it's well made.
It's like, do I want this thing that I'm going to carry around with me? It's quite big. The screen is not 1080p, but I can't stop playing it, and I want to take it everywhere with me, and I play it at every opportunity. I went to the UK recently, and having the Switch with me, playing like Mario Odyssey on the plane, playing Xenoblade Chronicles 2, being able to just bust out the Switch at like a Christmas party I went to last week when I played the Super Nintendo games, to just being to salmon run on Splatoon because the people I was with also had Switches. It's like the most weirdly versatile console anyway, and that I guess that's its selling point. But then I just can't believe the first year back catalog is just so full of Nintendo first party titles and great third party games like Doom and Skyrim, and it's so weird.
Yeah, they ported Doom over.
It's weird. Like there's this portable handheld console that is playing like a 60 FPS version of Doom. Like, did
you see that famous tweet in 2017? In 2016 rather, everyone thought Nintendo was doomed. In 2017, Nintendo has Doom.
It's an incredible
Credits
story.
to the original author.
Even if you're not a fan of Nintendo, I obviously am, and I've grown up playing Nintendo games, and being able to have a radically different Zelda game that is just wonderful. Having the chance to also meet Aonuma-san this year and speak to him about Breath of the Wild was fantastic. And then playing Mario Odyssey, which is, I think, one of the most joyous games I've played in so long.
Wait, you got to meet and talk with Aonuma?
Yeah, I got to have a few shochus earlier this year at Bit Summit in Japan and speak to the man himself a little bit about Breath of the Wild.
That's a flavor of sake, right?
Yeah, shochu, it's like a certain
Japanese I knew that.
Alcohol, yeah.
So what's he like? I'm a little curious. Just to keep it quick. But,
he's very nice. He's very funny, and he might have been a little tipsy at the time, because we were all having a nice little party. But he was super nice guy. He signed my Breath of the Wild cart because I didn't have the box. I only had the cart in my Switch with me. Did
you get him to lick it?
No, he knows better than anyone not to lick those cards.
Oh yeah, because he knows what toxic shit they put in there to make it taste so bad.
He knows exactly what's gone into it, probably. But yeah, it just topped off like this incredible year for Nintendo, I think, and for me personally. The Switch has just been like a super positive thing. Like, it's not that expensive. The only downside is it's been hard to get hold of. But once you got hold of it, there was this whole range of video games to play from. Like, you don't have to just play Zelda or Mario if that's not what you're into. You can play like Doom or Skyrim. And you can play this wealth of indie games like Golf Story, which is really fun. You can play Sonic Mania. There's just all of these.
Yeah, it almost seems like if you want to like ask, okay, was this game relevant in the past 2 years, and was it below a, like, I don't know, let's say $5 million production budget, it's probably on the Switch or planning to be on the Switch.
Exactly, like Wolfenstein 2.
Wolfenstein
You know, we were
2.
talking about
They're
that.
getting Duck Game even. Like all the big indie games and all those
London.
like mid-tier AA's are ending up on the Switch.
Yeah, and it's incredible. It just to how we got here from
It's
a year and 2 months ago, not knowing what it even looked like, apart from like someone's shitty drawing on a napkin or something, to being here and talking about. Not only is there, I think, like 4 games on that console that are up for multiple Game of the Year nominations, but the console itself it's more powerful than I think we expected. I mean, it runs Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild, which are 2 incredibly looking games. I mean, it has its cut corners, of course, because it's a portable console at the end of the day. But it's great, and I'm looking at it right now, and I just want to like stroke it because it's brought me immense joy this year.
That's
Wow.
one thing led to another, and
Yeah.
don't let anyone walk in on you with your Switch, I guess.
Yeah, taking
But
my
yeah,
Joy-Cons out.
I'm going to be buying one soon. I'm really looking forward to it after the critical close-up. What I think is going to be real appealing to me, and what does just kind of seem appealing about the Switch, is that it seems like such a profitable, appealing market for developers who want to make a video game at, like, what is my favorite budget level for video games.
Yeah, like, I
which
can't
is enough to
remember
have the
which-
cool production values, but not so much that they need to, like, play it safe and
Yeah, and I
over-market a
can't-
really generic top 40s kind of game.
I can't remember which indie developer it was, but some indie developer ported their game to the Switch, and they were like, I think they tweeted saying, "Oh, to other prospective indie developers, you really should port to the Switch because we saw our revenue way surpass our Steam sales
Holy
and our
cow.
like our major platforms already." So people who own the Switch who see like these $10 to $12 games are just like buying them every week.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah, a console full of like good $10 to $20 games sounds like
you take
my
anywhere with
ideal
you?
future.
As well.
And it's also
kind of
not
games.
junk games with
Yeah.
microtransactions and DRM.
It's weird.
Anyways.
It's just turned out so great. But yeah, my 2017 highlight is definitely the Nintendo Switch as a whole.
Matt, you've been pretty quiet, but you did say you had a list of highlights.
Oh, well, not a list of highlights. I was just saying I had a list of games. Oh, well, because okay, so for me, my highlight would probably be the Japan trip.
That's a highlight.
That is definitely a highlight of the year in terms of games. In terms of games, I mean, I played Pyre, Wolfenstein 2, Divinity.
I forgot about Pyre.
Yeah, Destiny 2, Hellblade. That deserves a mention. Battle Chef, of course. Mario, Zelda, Botwa. Shadow
Zelda
of War,
Boulois.
Deus Ex, FF14, Steam Dug World 2, and Sonic Mania. A few games, but the thing that really gets my blood boiling, out of all those, even like Divinity Original Sin 2, which was a pretty good game. I had for a game like that I'm usually not into the strategy types of games, especially when it comes to the RPG format, like Pillars of Eternity, for instance. I never really get into a combat like that. I play it strictly for the story. But in Divinity,
You really liked the first one, right?
yeah. Pillars or Divinity?
No, I mean Divinity.
No, I never played the first one. I had to skip directly to part 2, and it was pretty good. It's pretty solid. I would say near the second half, it starts to show signs of unfinishedness. There's some glitches with some quests. There's some really broken encounters with enemies. An enemy where puts down cursed fire, but when the enemy walks around, he puts down cursed fire. So every time you hit him, he teleports with cursed fire around. And what you have to do and you can't just rain and remove cursed fire. You have to heal it with a limited resource that you have. So basically, you can't kill this guy without like trapping it somehow. There's a lot of little things like that. And plus like a little glitched quest. So it was a little bit weird. So it definitely doesn't take the top spot. And I wouldn't say game of the year. Resident Evil 7 was very fun as well. I don't know if everyone forgot about that as well. But
I remembered it.
I think in general, you can just say 2017 was a damn good year for games in general.
I think one of the reasons why it has avoided mention up to this point is because Capcom's team on that game, weren't a lot of them actually in Western studios this time for Resident Evil?
No, I know there was a lot of Western hands-on, but it was all internally in Japan.
And you can kind of tell when you're playing it. Like, it seems a lot kind of less wacky and surreal than the Resident Evil norm. Like, there's no Chris Redfield punching boulders. It's a muted take on American poverty that still kind of has the sense of humor struck me as not really Japanese either. Like it's not it's more sarcastic and subtle than you see in a lot of Japanese games writing. And I think they actually hired on the writer for the Fear series for this one. And I think that's like Resident Evil itself like presents an interesting paradigm shift in how Japanese games are being handled, because that's a series that was kind of made more for appealing to Western markets. I believe that was the case anyways. Like they researched American locations, hired American actors to write a story that was in English in the Japanese version. But since then, now they're like kind of finally handing the reins to Americans who grew up as fans of the Resident Evil games as kids and are now putting a spin on it that I don't know if it like feels more authentically Resident Evil, because it's so divorced from tone, but it's also more authentically Resident Evil in gameplay. It's like kind of interesting how they went in two different directions to land at the same origin point, which was rebooting Resident Evil in the style of classic Resident Evil.
Did you ever finish the game?
I did not. I played the first 3 hours of it at Colin's house in VR.
Oh, so you never actually... Oh, okay. So you didn't
and don't get me wrong, I want to, but
it gets really goofy. I don't want to... You know that, right?
It got really goofy. Yeah, it got really goofy as soon as the dinner scene happened, and that was only like 20 minutes in.
Oh, so wait, did you fight the first boss?
Yeah, the guy that you burn up and in the car smacks into him, and I laughed out loud at multiple points in this game. Like, it had a sense of humor to it.
See, there's something that happens when he gets in the car. He starts driving around trying to kill you.
Yeah, I remember that. I played like a good 3 hours of it. You were there. I think you were asleep though.
No. I was there, but you missed it. You missed that part. I'm pretty sure you missed that part, and we were telling you about it. We were like, "Oh, dude, it's so cool when he gets in the car." Blah blah blah. Yeah, that was like my first experience with it. Like my first battle with him, he like gets in the car and tries to run me over. I'm like, "We're in a garage. What are you doing?
Where are you gonna go?"
It's so good. It's so good. That's my honorable mentions. Hellblade is also good. It's just repetitive in some parts. I really like the combat. Some people didn't like the combat. I enjoyed that game. Really good visuals. Some really cool boss fights in there. Very short, not too hard. If you die in that game, you have to restart the whole game, but it's not that hard. Yeah, it sucks, but it's not that hard. Good game. But my favorite game, I would have to say, is Hollow Knight.
Hollow Knight's a pretty damn good game.
Oh, that did come out in 2017, didn't it?
Hollow Knight was... Yeah, February.
Yeah, February. Oh, that was during like the spring rush of really good games.
Oh my God.
See, now that's a game I cannot wait to come onto the Switch. Like,
yeah, it's gonna come with the DLCs too.
Like, come on, guys, hurry up.
I'm buying it on the Switch again. Like, I'm gonna buy it again. And I'm not a type of person to play a game again. This game, I'm going to play again. And I'm gonna buy it on the Switch to have it with me all the time. And try to beat every single boss that's in there. Because there's like the beginning layer where you defeat a boss, and then there's like that extra layer where you go inside and these like secret areas if you look for them, and you fight these harder bosses, and it's fantastic. It's fantastic. The game, I love when a game is hard, but it's hard when the mechanics just work. It's not punishing you for just dumb animation and dumb game feel, I guess you can call it. How your character feels, how your character moves, how your attacks affect enemies. Just all that just feels tight, controlled, and the bosses are balanced with that, and it's great. So it's a little. I love that game. I love that game. After playing, like I rarely like a game these days. I don't know what's wrong with me, but I play a game and I'm just like, okay, that was cool. Like Resident Evil 7, like I liked the game. I really liked the game. Divinity Original Sin, liked the game. But there's always something wrong. But Hollow Knight, I really enjoyed myself, like all the way through, and that's really rare.
I'm looking forward to giving it a try, and I will be buying a Switch after the release of my next video. When I can cool down again, I'm going to be relaxing with that, and I totally would love to play it on that first. And I have to wonder, you mentioned buying it twice for if it did come out on the Switch, and I have to wonder if like that's an actual real contributing factor to their strategy. Yeah, like so many indie games get re-released on the Switch, and I hear every time it happens, so many people say, "Oh God damn it, I'll just buy it again." And meanwhile, you look at these sales figures. Yeah, you look at sales figures for Rocket League on the Switch, and Rocket League is a game everyone already has, and the sales figures are enormous. And it's like making a platform that can do this portably suddenly like presents a viable, not even alternative, but like complementary way to play the same games you've already bought. If they standardized a way to make the same ports of games purchasable under the same accounts on multiple platforms, I bet people would be more mad about that,
It's weird. I think the philosophy is, and this holds true with a lot of people I've spoken to, I want every game to be released on the Switch. I think that's what Gabe Newell said about Steam when that was being launched. He was like, I envision a future where every game is on Steam. I want to be able to play just any game, anywhere, because the Switch has spoiled me. Like, why can I not play, why can't I play flipping Dark Souls on the train? It's not fair. I want to play any game at any time, anywhere. The Switch is ruined everything. Games these days have so much grinding and collectathoning, you might as well do it while you're like trying to stay busy anyway. Exactly. Well, so, speaking of games with grinding and collectathoning, George, my favorite game this year was actually not a game that you spend endlessly grinding and collectathoning. Nier Automata has some of that, but not nearly as bad as its predecessors or its contemporaries in the field. This is a really, really big, long game that has you wandering in a desert, filling out side quests for not very exciting rewards, but the side quests are all like folded in really tightly to this like amazing cohesion of themes that gradually reveals more and more different ways to play with crazy thought experiments about these themes as you go on. And it's really, really unfortunate how the game's structured and marketed. You gotta play through it multiple times, right, to get the quote unquote true ending. But that's such a misnomer. I think one of the big problems with it actually is playing too harshly on the endings, because you have what's called an A route. You play through the game as a character and get an ending A where credits roll, and that story is the very first story you're going to do, and it's not really that great of a story. But your B route, I had a blast with that, and during C, D, and E, like my jaw was just dropping. The game was all I could think about all week when I was playing through it. I was having a really, really awesome time just kind of like bundling up under the covers, playing this weird Japanese thing with great production values that felt like a weird PS2 game I had rented from Blockbuster back in the day. And so I go make a like really, really sappy, sentimental video about like how interesting I think this thing is. And I tweeted about it
before the video came out, and I think during my tweet, I gave one like negative qualifier to make it sound like I wasn't gushing too hard, and all of a sudden, hell broke open. Bunny Hop is the hugest, biggest, dumbest idiot of the year, because he tweeted about how Nier Automata might have been a bit too long, because you got to deal with like all these fake out ending credit sequences that don't actually end anything. And meanwhile, you have like important shit tier celebs who are like my colleagues, like calling me out on being wrong about the endings being inconclusive. When son, those endings are inconclusive. They were real endings. Point is, I hate that like that's the final moment I have to remember my experience with that game on. And I really wish I could just remember playing it and enjoying it. You do, but don't talk about it on Twitter. Like, for some reason...
I mean, you're just repeating yourself. You're just going to get in more shit, so...
The anime avatars on Twitter who really like Yoko Taro games want you to like them in their own specific way, or else your liking of their game is not valid and proof that you're dumb. God! Anyways, so it's really like that was my highlight of the year. It's like sad. It's like it started off fairly early on, around spring. March was going on to April, and like every single time I made a video throughout the rest of the year, I just could not stop thinking about that incident. It was a really, really powerful moment, and I hated it, but kept chugging through anyway, and played some good ass games since like my opinion and memories of Nier Automata is so divisive, I don't know if I would objectively say that is my game of the year. And I'm going to be actually playing Prey. When I finish up Critical Close-Up of Metal Gear Solid 4 and before I do my year-end review, I'm going to play through Prey. And Prey looks like my jam. It looks like a George game that I've been wanting to come out for years. There's a lot of fans who are recommending it to me. They say it's right up my alley, and I can't wait to give it a shot. And I'm hoping that that'll be the big ticket, AAA, expensive, $60 full release that'll be my game of the year. If not, I am cool though, because I did end up reviewing a shitload of good games that did like 2 or 3 really interesting things, but people might not remember them super well for not setting the world on fire. These games I would include in that list are stuff like A Hat in Time. Oh, A Hat in Time is an incredibly cute, underappreciated game. Like, I've actually read reviews who argue that its controls are more precise and polished than Mario Odyssey's, and there's much less content in comparison. You can 100% this thing in less than 10 hours, but it has such a like cute, adorable, likable, wonderful little style to it that, oh, I'm gonna miss it already.
I like grinding for freaking moons, man.
Yeah, you just get to the point, and all the levels, the optional levels that represent like the high level in-game grinding stuff are some of the most fun levels in the whole game. Like, I had a blast repeating them over and over and over again for hours. Like, if you're losing, you know you're having fun, and I lost it several of those on streams for hours. And once you finally get the thingy at the end of the Collectathon platforming challenge, it feels so good because the controls are like always in control. You always know what you're doing. Anyways. Yeah, no, A Hat in Time. People might forget about A Hat in Time, and that's a shame because it's really good. Edith Finch. Do you remember Edith Finch, guys?
I played a little bit of that.
Any love?
I played a little bit of that. It's very interesting. I didn't expect that at all. So I want to finish it, but I haven't. What is it? Is it a walking simulator type game?
Yeah. It's a Gone Home walking simulator with shitloads of little mini games that represent the stories the characters are going through, and they're like divided up into an almost like mini game collection kind of thing. Like the Gone Home Abandoned House is a mini game collection of mini games that spell out the stories of the people and their weird family history inside the house. And I don't know, as is the case with always those things, I found myself vulnerable to its themes, vulnerable to its sappy moments of sentimental storytelling. I loved it. People are probably going to forget about it because it didn't set the world on fire. Whatever. Loved it regardless. What else? For Honor. For Honor was a really big deal for a couple weeks.
Wait, that came out this year?
Yeah, super early on.
Whoa, I thought that was last year. Oh, God. That died.
2017 was just like, it did, and that's also really sad, and people are not going to remember it, but it was a really good game. like a third-person multiplayer, over-the-shoulder, highly technical fighting game with netcode people didn't like, and microtransactions that made it feasible to pay to win. And those two missteps are what's going to be the death of this thing, which is a huge huge bummer to me. But what I see, unfortunately, I didn't get to play a lot of the big ticket ones, partially because I wanted to wait till the end of the year to buy a Switch, so I missed out on that whole party. But I was playing the shit out of a lot of my friends' Switches, so I still know what a Mario Odyssey is. And I quite enjoyed the 2 hours of it I played. That was adorable. But I think like what my experience with the year shows is that even the 8 out of 10 forgettable games of this year were really good this year.
Totally.
Like it pains me to say that, because I'm just saying that because I'm like, they had, the only reason those games were like 8 out of 10 and kind of forgettable is because the games that did set the world on fire were just of such a huge high standard right now.
There's
like if For Honor came out any other year, it would have been a bigger deal. If A Hat in Time came out any other year, if A Hat in Time didn't have to compete with Mario Odyssey for this year's best hat-themed platformer, it would have done very, very well. But I guess what's unfortunate is that they might not make their good sales, but that team should be extremely proud of what they pulled off.
It's funny you say that, because we're talking about, you know, the highlights of 2017 and what has stuck out to us personally, but there's so many. As you said, there's so many games out there. I mean, we haven't even mentioned games like Horizon Zero Dawn, you know, South Park: The Fractured But Whole. There's like, as much as it was weird, but, you know, Shadow
can't cover
of
them
War.
all.
There was Cuphead, you know, Neo.
Oh,
Evil
yeah,
Within
Cuphead
2.
was something I fell in love with for a week, too, and kind of forgot about later. But damn, that was a good-ass week. Whoa.
Gravity Rush 2, that game came out, too. Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle.
Rush.
Yeah,
Wait,
Gravity Rush 2.
That's not the weird Japanese game, is it? Let me see here.
It could be considered a weird Japanese game. It's a cute Japanese game,
I remember seeing
kinda.
a big poster with a girl with scantily...
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Okay.
You're not wrong.
Okay, I remember seeing that in the
yeah.
store, right next to like the cutesy like Mario freaking poster.
I mean, it's definitely one of the more like least lewd revealing outfits a video game girl can wear
than most Japanese games.
Yeah.
Okay, it may not be
It's not like that bad, but I definitely can see how that's how you remember the ads for it.
Okay, yeah, I remember seeing this in Japan. I was just like, what's this?
Oh, and it was the Japanese ads too.
Yeah,
like
yeah. It might,
that just means they're working as intended.
Yes.
Welcome to my local game store shopping.
Your local game / porn store, one-stop shopping. They're just like across the shelf from each other.
But I think we can basically just say 2017 was a very good year for games.
Very good year. Even the like bad games that I played this year were really good this year. And I really wish I could get into better habits about... I'm just like afraid to touch the AAAs so often because I'm afraid of getting burnt. But it seems like this year there were some very safe choices.
We were talking about loot boxes, and none of us really played any game that contained them, which is proof
were
enough.
good-ass alternatives coming out of Japan, probably.
There's proof that there are plenty of games out there that you can play instead of playing Star Wars Battlefront 2 or Shadow of War or something.
Even though we did touch on loot boxes and how shitty they are, most of the news from this year has been pretty positive. Pretty darn positive.
Yeah. And
I think that's a good high happy note to end it on. But before we wrap up, we are gonna do one since we did viewer emails, answers, questions and answers last week. We're gonna go do. How does the Family Feud theme go? We're gonna play Guess That Game or something. Do we even have a real name for this game?
No.
If you have topics or suggestions that you want us to guess during this game that we're going to play with Liam, in which he's going to give us clues to guess for a game title with, send them to... Hang on, scrolling. dadandsonspodcast@gmail.com.
You made the email. How could you forget?
Because I didn't know if it was Dad and Sons or Dads and Sons, or if there were like punctuation marks. I just wanted to be sure.
Who puts punctuation in email addresses?
Dickheads. That's why I made sure not to.
Well, that would make you the dickhead.
I didn't, so I'm good. I'm in the clear. So that's Dads and Sons. The and is not a punctuation. It is fully spelled out. The sons are plural with no apostrophe because it's not a possessive at gmail.com. And what we're going to do is guess the name of a game that Liam knows and me and Matt do not. Or? Oh, that's right, because it was Pauline last week, right? Or last time, rather.
2 weeks ago. Yeah.
But
today is a character, actually.
What you got for us?
So today is a character.
Let's hit it off.
Game.
Oh boy.
So you playing it
You
at
don't
home,
say.
Please don't Google. Matt and George are not allowed to Google either.
If
So
you
try
hear
your
my
best.
keyboard tapping, yell at me to stop.
It's funny because the Demon
We can
Souls
all hear you.
How is it that funny? It's not just guys. Oh.
Just in case you don't get that joke, because you are listening to the YouTube one, is because we had to clear out all that from last week.
Oh, Matt, I can't believe you just tapped on your keyboard on the 12 years in the can. Your parents must be ashamed. I can't believe you would do such a heinous war crime. Oh my god.
Go ahead.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, getting into the game. So this week we have a character because we got some feedback about the Demon Souls one being a little too easy for our audience. So we're gonna go with a character this time. I haven't gone too wild with it, but we'll see how you two fare. Let's see how you fare. So
it better not be like some Japanese name and some
character from Gravity Rush too.
Or
you're
like
laughing like that. I'm looking up Gravity Rush 2 characters right now as we speak.
JoJo's Bizarre Adventure for the Dreamcast. Hit me. Let's see what I'm not gonna guess.
That's a damn good game. Anyway, getting into the game. So if you're joining us for the first time, the game is very easy. I will give a clue. I have 5 clues about this character, and we will segment it. So after each clue, George and Matt will have the chance to sort of discuss and then guess, but you only get one guess because last time
it was a little mess.
Wholesomely cheated, and Matt won thanks. No, George. Who won?
No.
George won.
George won
you
because I gave him a clue, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we're gonna structure it a little better this time. Okay, so you guys at home as well can guess. So let's kick it off with the first clue. So this character featured in a game that released on November 29th, 2016.
Oh, new. Okay. How hard can this be? I bet it's going to be real easy. Fall release last year. That narrows it down by a lot.
Okay.
Okay. Next clue. I'm good.
Number 2. Okay, we're going to go straight into number 2.
All right.
The game is part of one of the most renowned game series in the world.
Okay, so major sequel, last year holiday season. This narrows it down even further. I bet it's not Watch Dogs.
Renowned for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Renowned series.
When
did GTA 5 re-release? Was that to 2015? Or was the original out on 2015?
I don't know. We can't Google anything.
What was it? Call of Duty Infinite Warfare?
Well, it's a character we're looking for, so that's not really a guess, is it?
Okay, yeah, I think we need more clues if we're going to do a character.
I feel like fall. You said fall, right? Last year?
November 29, 2016.
Oh, okay. What? Deus Ex didn't come out in November, did it?
Oh, I don't know if it came out in November, but it's definitely a renowned video game series.
Right. I don't remember that guy's name. I don't remember it. How do I not remember his name? I like that game.
JC didn't. No, not JC didn't.
Jesse
Adam
Pinkman.
No, it's not the
Adam Jensen.
answer.
Yeah. Why did I remember the name of the voice actor before the character?
No, you didn't. You remembered the guy from the first Deus Ex. That's his name.
And then I remembered Elias Tufexis, who
right.
I'm horribly mispronouncing.
I don't think that's it, is it?
It's
it?
not.
It's a
not.
character, though.
No, and that was a guess. So we're going to move on to the third clue.
All right.
All right.
This character is an heir to a throne, making him a prince.
Oh, Oh, I know what it is. Oh, that's easy. Oh, you gave it away with that one.
Go ahead, because I actually don't know.
It's Final Fantasy 16?
Oh,
Or are they at... No, 15. They're at 15 right now.
right.
Yeah. So the character would be Noxus. Noctis?
Noctis is the correct answer. Noctis is not the correct answer. Noctis is the correct answer. Yes, it is Noctis Lucius Caelum from Final Fantasy 15. The fourth clue was, during his journey, he is accompanied by 3 of his best bros for the best bromance road trip of all time. And number 5,
and if we didn't get it at that point, we would have been real
exactly,
idiots.
Right. He is designed by Tetsuya Nomura and voiced by a good friend of mine, Mr. Ray Chase. So, there you go.
Who do you not know?
I don't know these days.
Do you get
Everyone
around,
has some
huh,
sort of
Liam?
connection. I do. I sleep around in the video game industry, that's for sure.
Yeah.
You were just telling us what a, like, giggly old man, even with Aonuma?
Yeah. Wow, 2017's been a 2017's been a good year.
Trying to change the subject here, are we, Liam?
Yeah.
So when you want to hear
what about you
Liam's...
guys at home? How did you do? Did you get Noctis Lucius Caelum? How did you get it faster than these two? Tell us. Also, send us your game name suggestions. What should we call this segment?
We're gonna call this segment that segment with the questions. Anyways, do we have any final remarks, any last thoughts we want to say about the year before we wrap up? Because I think we hit a lot of the big major obvious points. I'm sure there's some more small niche stories that we didn't cover, but like Liam was saying actually earlier, you can't talk about everything in 2017.
No. It's a good year.
Yeah. You got to set aside some time, some real time, if you want to cover everything. But well, I guess we'll see how much I can manage to cover in a video coming out. Let's say 4 weeks from now. We got Critical Close-Up, and then year in review, and then some more interesting newsy topics once I'm done with those. But until then, bye everyone.
Also, if you're interested, I'm going to be talking a little more about the 8 games I thought were overall the best to take with you to a deserted island soon on the final end of year 8 episode of Final Games. So if you want to check that out, it'll be up some point next before this episode actually. It'll be up already at www.soundcloud.com/Final Games Podcast, or you can search for it on iTunes at Final Games as well.
You said 8 games?
Until then. Oh.
Until then.
Until then. Anyways, Liam, you said 8 games?
Yeah, the 8 games to take with you to a deserted island.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Liam. I didn't hear all that because over my yelling. Go ahead. Damn it.
I think we should just leave.